So this is the March 7th, 2021 meeting of the Miami Pioneers and Natives of Dade here on Zoom. And today we have Renny Young, who's going to give us a talk about the history of the Coconut Grove Sailing Club here on the occasion of the 75th anniversary. It's your 75th anniversary year, is that correct?
Correct.
Well, then without any further ado, why don't we turn the program over to Renny, who's got some wonderful programming on his computer to share with us. And remind everybody, if you can, keep your audio muted if you don't need to speak, and we'll go ahead and move forward. So Renny, take it away.
Okay, well, for those of you that may not know where the Coconut Grove Sailing Club is, it's at from Coconut Grove takes McFarland, which goes right down to the bay and then makes an angle to Bayshore Drive. It's right there at the end of McFarland Road. In fact, McFarland Road really goes right down to the bay with a turnaround there, a hairpin turn. And the club was started 75 years ago, and at that time did not have a clubhouse or anything, but we'll get to that. This is Dinner Key, aerial, an aerial shot of it. And down here to the left-hand corner, here's where the city docks are now, not the marina docks, but the city docks, or the what we used to call Seminole boat ramp for trailer boats to come in and out. But right in this lower left-hand corner, a man lived there by the name of Captain Sam. And what he would do, and let me push this screen up a little bit if I can. For some reason, I'm not being able to do that, but hang on a minute. Let's see. Yeah, anyway, you can see all the boats here at the bottom moored out. And this shot was taken in the 40s. There were still airplanes there. Pan American hadn't moved out yet. They moved out in 1945. So the boats moored out there, they always needed somebody to row them out if they didn't have their own rowboat to go sailing for the day. And this Captain Sam provided that. He lived initially in a bus, people told me, right on the shore there, which would be between the Peacock Park and Dinner Key, and right on the shoreline there. And so he would charge 10 cents or so to, this is Captain Sam. And in the background is where the club will be, but not yet. Anyway, because of his central location there, all kinds of people would work on their boats on the shore or use him to go out to their boat if they didn't have their own dinghy and so forth. So they got to know each other. And that pretty much is how the club even got started, them talking as they were going out to their boats on weekends and so forth. And this is just an area where you can see the people working on their boats here. See if I can enlarge that. I'm trying to. Yeah, here we go. And doing the bottom and so forth. This shack, I'm not sure about. I think that was Captain Sam's, but he had a bus first, so maybe he ended up getting an actual little house there. It's long gone now, but he did live in a bus, as I said. So then it says 30 men and women, boys interested in boat and sailing got together at Dr. Paul Robertson's house on St. Gaudens Road there near Douglas and Main Highway, and formed the club. And with that was they elected a man named Frank Kurdike as the Commodore, and also Don Smith, who was only 17 at the time. It says in this item he was Vice Commodore, but he's actually Rear Commodore. The difference being you have Commodore, Vice Commodore, and then Rear Commodore, and work your way up. So Don Smith, I hope has joined us, but maybe not yet, but he was going to try. So I don't know whether he's with us or not right now. But anyway, the whole idea of the formation was to get kids into sailing, promote sailing safety or water safety, and also camaraderie of the club and so forth, and hold races. Because at that time we had just Biscayne Bay Yacht Club, and Miami Yacht Club. So this was just adding to more boats on the bay to race with one another from the other two yacht clubs. At that time, like I say, in the founding members, which included my mom and dad, but we had Walter DeGarmo, we had renowned architect, we had Gus Harrison, who was board of directors of Coconut Grove Bank, and so forth. We had sailmakers, boat builders. My dad was a contractor, built houses. So we quite a variety of different professions, and a lot of that I don't know about. Worth Brown had a boat yard up on Miami River. He was a founding member and so forth. And so we'll see as we go through that these names come back out. Jack Engel. This is the three I was talking. This is Frank Kerdike. This is Henry or Hank Crampton and Jack Engel. Now, between these first three, within the next 6 years, these three also took a tour as Commodore again. Jack Engel did, and you can see where Frampton is the fourth Commodore, but is also the second. But anyway, they each took a turn at it again, just to keep the club rolling in the right direction. Now, during this time, excuse me, go back one. This is Coconut Grove Elementary School. And this is where the meetings were held for a little over a year until they started talking or figuring out how they would, get a clubhouse established. And so in October of 46, I've got the minutes here. We had the minutes of this meeting. And as it says, Fleet Commodore Young. Back then we had a Fleet Commodore, and that was my dad, but we have a Fleet Captain now, but we don't have a Fleet Commodore, but at that time they did. Anyway, he found a prefabricated building and said they could erect it for $4,000. And he went on to say, that the club had some money, so they had to borrow some from, and they got it from Coconut Grove Bank and issued these $10 bonds. Unfortunately, I had a couple of those at home, but in the 80s turned them in, and I wish I still had them. I'd frame them, put them up at the club. But each member was required to buy at least one $10 bond, and then the junior members, down here, Gus Harrison, who was on the board of directors of the Coconut Grove Bank, suggested the junior members could be excused from the compulsory purchase of bonds. Commodore Young offered to underwrite any junior member who found it a hardship if they would put in one day's work for his company. He was building houses at the time. And then also my dad had made a motion that the executive committee be empowered to incorporate the Coconut Grove Sailing Club as a nonprofit organization to lease land, from the city of Miami for the purpose of erecting a clubhouse. And that's what happened. Also in this, I put this in because at that time we had a barge. And at the end of this meeting, Jack Engel reported work was done on the barge by the following members and so forth. Notice Carol Gulliver, that's the Gulliver Academy. Her family started Gulliver Academy, and she'd have done, if I remember, St. God's Road. But this is that barge. And so they put their name on it. That barge actually came from Pan American at Dinner Key. It was used for the maintenance of aircraft and so forth. And in this, there's my mother. She's a timekeeper on that barge. They would tow the barge out as a race committee boat. This is E.P. McDonald. That's my father. And there's Jack Engel. He's always in something with the Sailing Club. He was quite active for so many years. Anyway, as I said, that came from Pan American. And then also 1947, this gentleman, now this picture was taken in 2000, but in 1947, this man designed the Opti prams that are used to teach kids how to sail, which are still all around the world today. It's probably the most produced boat in the world. And just for somebody that, it's only 7 feet long, but it's an excellent trainer for kids. Centerboard or a dagger board that they can pull up and down and sail right up on the beach, and sprit sail and so forth. Also in 1947, we got our clubhouse, and this is it. This is a prefab building that the members put together, erected it, everything in one work weekend. the sailing club members. And you can see the bay out here. And then this is from the bay side, there's the screened in area, but it is on the back side. But anyway, the bay side, and there again, of course, is Jack Ingle. And there's just some dinghies around and so forth. This is Don Smith. Don, I hope you're with us, but if not, this is when the first rear Commodore, you see the dinner key or the City Hall. At that time, it wasn't City Hall yet, but the city owned it. The building back here was the restaurant in there. But anyway, that's Don Smith when he was 17 or so in 1947. Now this is about 1948. And notice, let me blow that up a little bit. This was a storehouse for boats. And this is, of course, on the bay side of the erected sailing club. This archway was actually came from Pan American also. It was the walkway to go out to get on the airplanes. And called the Marquee. And there's another example of it. And I believe also that our floating dock probably was used for boarding airplanes too, because you had to have a ramp down from the seawall to a floating dock of some sort. And very possibly that's what we. That in 1949, Jack Ingle, went to Sarasota and brought back 5 of these Opti prams. They were designed and started in Clearwater, Florida, so this wasn't that far away. But anyway, he brought back 5 prams. But in addition to that, the members, my dad by that time had a wood mill in Perrine, and they would get local merchants to finance 2 pieces of 2 4x8 sheets of plywood to make the prams out of, and then the merchant would also buy the sails or the paint or whatever, sometimes donate it, and then the members would build them. So they had these 5 to start off with, but they ended up with probably about at least a dozen more in the first year or so, and they ended up by 53 they had 30 of them. And here's a picture of an example, because these are personal pictures I had. That's myself, that's old Renny, and my brother and my cousin. But Huskamp Motor Company, for those that don't know, that was at Ponce and Lejeune Road, which became Deal Ford and is no longer there at that location. But and this is my father in the other one, and my family, my aunts and uncles. But anyway, but Huskamp means they supplied the plywood, the paint, and so forth in the sail, and the members built them. Now this is about 1949 or 50, give or take.
So they had underwritten the cost of a lot of the expenses for you. Is that it?
Yes.
And were there other companies that did similar, or were they the main one then?
Oh no, there was a bunch. Possibly, I don't know. Miami Gas, I think, was one I saw over the years, and possibly even Shell Lumber that's there today. They started about that time, 1951. Shell Lumber did, so I'm not sure they were a sponsor or not, but probably even Hopkins Carter, the Marine Supply, which is up on the river, Miami River. But this is back when the newspaper used to cover the sailing community and so forth. This is a picture of whoops, there. Anyway, a picture. This is Frank Kurdak, the first Commodore, W.C. Brooks, and this is Antoine Lather. This is my father, Gazette Awards, because he was, like I say, Fleet Commodore at the time, and what have you. But we don't hardly ever get any coverage from the newspapers anymore. But anyway, and this is at that time, starboats were real popular. That's my dad. This is my mom and my grandmother out through the day back in about 1949. And
it looks like a really fast boat. Is that a racing boat?
And that's the Bacardi Cup series starts today. I mean, the Bacardi Week here in Miami for the Bacardi Cup, which used to be held in Atlanta, as we'll see in a minute. But my grandmother was Prudence Gruelle, and she painted this from that day, from that photograph. She traced it, the lines of the sails and everything, and then painted this. And it was, her name was Prudence Gruelle, and it was her brother, Johnny Gruelle, that found her doll in the attic, you know, after they'd both grown up, and originated the Raggedy Ann stories and Raggedy Ann dolls. It was her brother. And this is in 1950 in Havana. E.P. McDonald, my mom, Peggy, my dad, and Edith. This is when Bacardi Cup was still in Havana. You can see down here in the lower right-hand corner, Barcino Photo in Habana. This was my dad playing the organ. I mean, the accordion. He played the organ too, but anyway, for my mom and so forth. And this was in the newspaper. I didn't have this at home. This was in the Sailing Club archives. If Don was here, he remembered that my dad used to play Peg of My Heart, because that was my mother's name, Peggy. And of course, she obviously loved it. But I don't know, did Don Smith join us yet? Can you hear me? Oh boy.
We can all hear you.
Okay. Didn't know. I wasn't sure.
We're all being very politely quiet.
This was something I found actually on eBay several years ago. This was a souvenir of Miami, Florida, but down here is, I'll enlarge it. It shows Miami Nassau Sailing Race, Coconut Grove Sailing Club, and there's the clubhouse, the original clubhouse, and the Royal Point and an orange blossom at the bottom. So I had this one, and I gave it to Don Smith after he did a presentation for us. But it was made in occupied Japan, and I thought that, how'd that ever happen? I don't know who ordered it and how they did it, and it kind of astounds me because it was from about 1951 or so. This is a picture of myself. That's my brother. This is Antoine Lather's son. And look, here I am back there with my damn candy cigarette or whatever it was, with my sailing cap on and the club logo. Tough guy back there, you know. Now I'm lazy on the club docks there, but sleeping on a sail bag, which I still do to this day. That's my favorite place on a boat to sleep, is get me a couple sail bags and I'm happy. At about 1950, 51, my father, this is a picture from the clubhouse at the sailing club, but my father got a John Alden catch. This was a 40-foot John Alden catch. Whoops. Uh-oh. Sorry.
Did it freeze up a little bit on you there?
Resume share, wait a minute. No, it started into slideshow, which I don't want. So hang on a minute. Escape. May go backwards, sorry. There. Can you still see that, Bob?
Yep. Okay. Looks good. I see you zooming.
Okay. This hangs in the bar there at the sailing club, but it was a beautiful John Alden catch. And I love the way the water would swoon up underneath that transom, but it'd come right over the edge of the boat. Sometimes I'd sleep back there, and it would just wake you up. But we had that till we moved for a while and had to sell it in about 1956 or 5. Now this is an article I threw in here from the Rudder magazine, which is a maritime magazine around the country at that time. And there's, of course, the same picture you saw with the ramps and so forth. But this was written by Sandy Hiss, and it just was giving a little bit of history of the sailing club and what it was doing. This is March of 1953. But you can see the prams are going full. And in this article, it mentioned that we had 30 of them by that time. And you notice the sailing club emblems are on them, but there's no advertising. So apparently, you know, that had got us started, but after a while, we didn't ask merchants to do that. Now, in 1954, this was the talk of the sailing world down here, and anybody that sailed in Southern Ocean Racing Circuit, Sourcey it's called. This boat's called the Hoot Bond. It was designed by and built by Worth Brown, a founding member of the club, and his two partners. One was Charlie Ulmer, he was a sailmaker. Worth was a boat builder from the Miami River, and then the money man was Lockwood Price, Woody Peary, not Lockwood Price, Woody Peary. And they had some arguments in the building of it, but this boat in 1954 won the Lipton Cup, the Miami to Nassau race a few months later, and the St. Petersburg to Havana race. And so the only thing was they wouldn't let it race in the Bermuda race because it didn't meet the dimension requirements. It had too small of a water line. Anyway, they called it the rule beater or the ugly duckling because it was built just to be a few inches under 40 feet, so it could get the advantage of a shorter boat, but just a few inches. And also, you can tell by the rig on this boat, for those of you that are sailors, it's sort of a non-conventional rig. This is at the 1954 Miami Nassau race, a picture from it, and they won it. But with that, by the way, for those of you that wondered, he wasn't the first to cross the line. Out of 25 boats, he was 15th. But because of the size, being under 40 feet, they owed him time. So on corrected time, he won the race. Here's another picture of it was kind of interesting of the Hootman because they didn't claim they had a bulb keel on it, which is similar to the Starboat that I showed you the picture of my dad's earlier. That he was tacking around a Coast Guard cutter, and the Coast Guard cutter, as he tacked around it, was blocking the wind until he got to the bow of it, and it knocked him down. And then they took a picture of his keel and found out that they had sort of fibbed a little bit about what type of keel they had on that boat. That's the Hootman, which means hey man in Bahamas. That same race, a famous boat called Ticonderoga, which is over here, my dad raced on that year. They didn't win, but Ticonderoga had set more records than any other sailing yacht that I know of, even back then. The Hearst family of Hearst rental cars owned it and bought it to Miami for about 2 years. And then it went other places. It's still around. There it is, number 100. Beautiful boat. All right, in 1954, we had the first Columbus Day Regatta. And it's interesting about it because at this time, let me open that up a little bit so you can read it, but a man named Tim Sullivan came up with the idea, and it was just in 1953, as it says here, Tim Sullivan, who founded the race, said it grew out of a suggestion by John Foster Dulles, the U.S. Secretary of State. Dulles couldn't make the dedication of the Columbus statue in Bayfront Park, which is downtown, in 1953. But the representative he sent carried a note from the Dulles saying that Miami shouldn't let the Columbus Day celebration die with the dedication of the statue, but should find some way of making it an annual event. A number of suggestions arose, among them Sullivan's idea of a regatta, and the Sons of Italy gave it their support. And so there it was. I was on the Antares, which is the picture of the John Alden catch I showed you. And this was referred, Jack Engel, this article was written 1981. By then, my father had long since passed away or gone. But sort of a funny story that happened at the upper right-hand corner here. The overnight floating parties on the yachts anchored off LA Key between the 2 days of racing have provided plenty of zany incidents. One year, Warren Young issued a general invitation for drinks aboard his boat, Antares. After the first day of racing, people kept coming aboard, and the well-lubricated crowd was having a fine time until someone noticed that, that there seemed to be a lot of water in the cockpit. A woman told my father, you know, you're up to your knees in water. They were drinking scotch and just to let things go by, and didn't realize that there was so much weight on the boat that the cockpit scuppers, which are in the floor of the cockpit to drain it, were under the water level. So the cockpit was just filling up with water coming right out of the bottom. So I remember my dad said, "You kids jump the water," and we did, and then told the adults to climb back on the other boats that were tied up to ours, and it popped right back up again. And of course, for those that don't know, Columbus Day Regatta is still quite a shindig. It's changed over the years. It used to become just one big massive party, we'll say, and various other things. But anyway, it's with us today. So it was a good time. Now, this is jumping ahead into 1960s at the Sailing Club. This picture was sent to me. I don't have a record of who did it, but this is Donna, the Hurricane Donna. These teenagers were on this boat looking at no trespassing by police. It was already on the shore. And as you can see, this is what it was afterwards. Quite a destruction between the two. And hurricane warnings. And then it shows further down, there's the clubhouse during hurricane warnings is the mark on the as we see down here. Now this is like 1960. An aerial view. What I wanted to point out about this was, there's our clubhouse over here with the 3 traditional docks. This would be the main dock for boats, for trailer boats over here, and this is for dinghies and the prams and so forth that's used for the kids. But notice this is Peacock Park. These were shade sheds. They had kind of like little cabanas in a way, and they're no longer there. There's a baseball diamond, which has changed now, and so forth. The turnaround is still with us, but no mangroves across here. Now, we're not allowed to cut those down, but there was no mangroves there. And you see, count the boats, there's probably 150 out there right now. Okay, this was after a hurricane, but we had, in 1960, we had Donna, and 64 and 65, we had Betsy and Cleo. And all 3 of them hit us. Donna was hit further south, but definitely I remember it had over 100-mile-an-hour winds. So this was some damage that was done during one of those hurricanes. I don't know which one. It's not marked with the actual date. There's our clubhouse and the marquee curved roof for the storage of boats. Now, this photo was taken in 1963. I was with this fellow, Rick Merritt, and this is Frank Cavanaugh and Betty Beadle. She was a superb sailor with the Sailing Club. So was Frank. Rick was a damn good sailor too. Anyway, they took this picture. I was in high school with Rick, and he asked me to crew with him, so I did. And then one weekend, we went out twice, Saturday and Sunday, to have these photos taken. And Rick and I parted friendship, and I never saw anything like it. I mean, never saw anything about it or thought anything about it. Over 50 years later, in the archives, I found it was made into a postcard up here. And of the 3 lightnings, those are lightnings, by the way. They're 19 feet long and quite an interesting, superb boat. There's not too many of them around in Miami anymore, if any, but they still have an international lightning class, and they still race them other places and so forth. Now, here's the prams, but this is special because these are all adults on these prams. I believe that's Betty Beadle, but anyway, this is my father over there with his hand up in the air. The idea of it was, this race started, they had to rig the opti prams and then start the sailing. So whoever was the fastest rigger had to jump on them. But in this, you can see the sort of mass confusion here. It looks like a slapstick comedy or movie. They also sometimes used to have the races of these prams backwards. You had to sail them backwards, which is quite a treat. I never did it, but I've seen some of them done. I mean, the races that did. And this you would never see today. This is 1968, and look at the launch. All those people, safety wouldn't allow it, you know, and much less since COVID. But there's 20 people on that little boat. Incredible, going out to the moorings. That's our a launch, you know, that takes us out to our boats out at the Sailing Club. Here's another shot. This is after, right here is where the Mutiny is, the famous nightclub. However, it really was called Sailboat Bay, and Mutiny was the nightclub, but not the condos. Now it's called Mutiny Condos and so forth. But you can see we still had our old clubhouse with the 3 traditional docks. Again, no mangroves around here or over here, all bare. And another shot from it. There's the library and the mutinies over here. This is 1970s. And again, with our 3 docks out, and the old clubhouse is here with some extension on it. This curved roof, now they added walls to it underneath it, and concrete block wall, and made it into an office in addition to the original sailing club. I put this in here so you can see the inside of that old sailing club is all pretty wood, all paneling, and it from the outside it was a prefab aluminum building, but this is inside. Plus this ship's wheel, I put that in there because I found this. Somebody had already spliced this picture. I didn't do that, but you can see the splice here. That was not a corner. That was just where the picture was 2 different pictures. But this has all the Commodore's names on it, and this is 40 years ago almost that they did this. So anyway, we'll see that again later on. This is what that little, there's the building. They built the office and so forth. That curved roof. They called that the Quonset hut. This over here, they called that the Quonset hut. This is the original building that it had been wiped out by a hurricane, but it didn't. Not the structure. It was just flushed through, and they had to sort of repair it. And again, they're just the old buildings. Inside now, this is a small bar they had. I'll show you 2, just from there over, about 14 feet long. And of course, all the wood paneling inside in the small bar. But from the outside, the club just didn't look that attractive. We'll get back to that. Anyway, Grove Club is the harbor for champions. I threw that in to remind myself there were so many superb world-class sailors that either started at the club or have been to the club. But a lot of them started at learning how to sail at the club and so forth. There's just been so many to mention. I mean, Augie Diaz and Mark Reynolds, but just goes on. It just many. Dennis Conner has been to the sailing club as it is now, not back then. But just many world-class sailors have either started there or been there. Then this is a meeting that was held because the city had said that the clubhouse was sort of an eyesore looking off of Bayshore, and it was old. By this time, the building is 30 some odd years plus be added to, etc. So again, it was going to be required that each member pay $550 to in a CGSC trust. Anyway, $550, and each member had to do that at that time. Now this is 1981, and this is a rendition by the architect of what the clubhouse was going to look like. The architect is down here, Fred Warren Hutchison. He was a member at the sailing club, and this was his drawing. He was an architect, and it was his drawing of what it was going to look like. And then on this, our Channel News is a newspaper that, our news brochure and so forth mailed out. But in this architecture, I brought this out to point out something. Take a good look at it. And he didn't invent all that, because look, there's the barnacle. A lot of it, the barnacle architecture, you can see in the sailing club's new building there. Anyway, so the clubhouse was to be raised. This was October of '81. And here's a picture of it that's Dick Webb. And this is the back of the old clubhouse, and there's the new one. The new one's just south of the old one. There were some criticism and critiques. This is 2 articles, blocking view of the bay. They said one attorney said that, and that it was a shame because it blocked the view of the bay and what have you. The answer in the upper right-hand corner was from John Bremen that he said blocked installed the concrete condos and so forth. He said the sailing club is built of coral rock and wood, and it is. It's exposed beams inside. It's and an oolite or natural limestone coral rock and so forth. So anyway, that died down, but not everybody was happy about the new clubhouse. Here it is in the 80s, an aerial shot again, the 3 traditional docks. Nope, still no mangroves, which now have filled up both sides of it, on both sides, north and south, lots of mangroves. But anyway, and at the end of the street here, all this is mangroves now. This I put in, this is 1987. This actually is a photo that Commodore Monroe took for the boiling spring, as he called it. It is before they drained the Everglades. Fresh water used to bubble up here in the middle of the, not in the middle of the bay, about a half a mile offshore. And this is a picture he took of them filling up kegs because there was such a sweet water from an underground spring coming out of the Everglades. Everglades, good water. Anyway, as time went by and they drained the Everglades, the water level went down some. It no longer would bubble up like that. So, but it still does a little bit. If you find it, anyway, it became what they call middle ground for you sailors. You hear about the middle ground. The Sailing Club made the application in 1987, put a private aid there, which means that we maintain it. The Sailing Club does, but it's for all boaters to stay away from it because it's only 2 feet deep at low tide. And this picture was just taken a little over a week ago. They keep power boaters and everything don't see it, and they keep running over it, or maybe the fast things break loose. But anyway, we've had to replace it several times. I've been personally involved with that several times. But anyway, this is a new marker that we'll be putting in there if it hasn't been done in the last week. These are sitting at the Sailing Club, or were sitting at the Sailing Club when this picture was taken. And that is where the freshwater spring was where middle ground is for you sailors. As you can see here, this is taken in the late 80s, and you can see the art festival now has just filled us up, which anybody that goes there knows what that is. And there's the new clubhouse. At that time, it was several years old with the traditional docks and what have you. In the 90s, this fellow was about to retire. This is Robert Clarington. He'd been the dock master and employee for 40 years, dock master a good portion of it. I don't know exactly when he became dock master, but to honor him, they named the island right in the background after him and got the city to agree with it. So that's Clarington Island now. He announced his retirement in 1999, but he was still there sometimes 5 years later, because I used to see him there 5 years later. And quite an interesting man, very nice guy. Also, this is 2003. The city of Miami allowed us to, well, 2 things. John Brennan was a past Commodore from 1979 and 80. He worked on the Waterfront Advisory Board and was very instrumental in that board and very influential, I should say. He got them to be recommended to extend the channel to leave the Sailing Club, one of the channels that does, not Dinner Key Channel, but the one south, extend it a little further out for the sailors and what have you. So anyway, they honored him by naming the channel after him. So it's John A. Brennan Channel, actually, and this is the Sailing Club is off there beyond it, and this is the Mutiny still. But that's why you'll see that sign if you're coming in on and see on channel marker 16. And I threw a picture in there. Here's John in 1979 and 80 when he was Commodore. Quite a character he was. He died the following year in 2004. I also, in 2004, met Bill Beavers, who was a past Commodore twice at the Sailing Club, and I started to race and sail with him. This is his baby, Finesse, number 301, and it was quite, how can I say it? He was my buddy, and he's passed away, but it was quite an experience to go racing with him. There he is. This is about not even a year before he passed away. God bless you, Bill. And then in 2004, I came back to the club in 2004 because I wanted my mom to get a little recognition for being one of the first ladies to sail competitively on the bay, because she crewed on my father's starboat that we looked at earlier. And so at the time, Jack Ham was Commodore, and he made her Sailor of the Month. Boy, she was proud. At this time, she was about 85 years old, 86 years old. And so here she is. There's a picture of her pointing to herself on the barge that I showed you earlier, and said she was sitting on the stool. She's pointing to herself. And the article went on about how she, was a founding member. And here's a better picture of it. For those of you that knew Peggy, that was her pointing to herself and sitting there. And this is in the Sailing Club bar, where members' pictures are all around here. And I'll show you another picture of that in a minute. These are snipes, by the way. And also the following year, 2005, Tecumseh, in the center picture here, came to the Sailing Club and moored out. When I got to know the owner, David Frid, and ended up going with him up the river and doing the bottom on that boat and making wood repairs on it on the bottom and so forth. Anyway, a better picture of it is here. This is in the Columbus Day Regatta, the Washington Birthday Regatta held by the Barnacle. But that's a 1902 boat. And he found it, of all places, in Fort Lauderdale. It had been on the Miami River. I think he found it in Fort Lauderdale and bought it. And now that boat is back up in Canada. He sailed that boat down in 2005. And then almost 10 years later, he came down again and was in that race when that was taken. But that boat was 1902 Friendship sloop. Beautiful boat, 50 with the bowsprit about 53 feet long. In 2015, we were pleasured to have Don Smith back as first rear Commodore. I hope, Don, that you're with us. And see if I can learn. And Don gave a great talk at the Sailing Club. And like I said, I hope he's with us. Well, this is Opti Sailing is still happening at the Sailing Club. This is the current picture. And that was the whole purpose of the club, was to get youth out there, and we still do that. Very strong youth program at the Sailing Club. We're always getting new members. There's Patricia, there's a picture of you with the new members several months ago. And you notice the Chip's picture above it. This is in the meeting room. There's a better picture of it in the meeting room. And this is a copy of our February channel news. Now this is only put out about quarterly. It's a monthly magazine, but they've gone to mainly you get it digitally or you look it up digitally. But about every quarter, they'll send you a printed copy of that month's. This is a picture of the bar of the different members' sailboats in our Burgee that Walter DeGarmo designed. And there's a picture of every Commodore from back here, Frank Kerdike back here in 1946, and Frank Henry Frampton, and then Jack Ingle and so forth, all along the way. This is an entrance to the meeting room. Now there's our wheel again. You notice all the little tags are facing the other way so that we could make more room to last another 30, 40 years of Commodores, or 20, whatever we can put up there. And our trophy case, that's on the entrance to the meeting room. On one side, the Commodore's photos are on the other. And then this is a plaque I made for celebrating our 75 years. This is hanging in the bar now. Patricia, well, she'll be hanging the other one anyway. This is the three clubhouses. I put in the original clubhouse that you saw pictures of, and what I call the extended clubhouse, because we added to it, and then the present one, back a picture from the 80s when it was first built. And another one for our 75 years is just this simply says it's celebrating 75 years, but the sailboat's on top because the sailing came first, the club came later. So that's pretty what I tried to do with that. And here's a view from the moorings of well lit up and well condoed, I'll call it Coconut Grove. Too much, but that's the way it is. And to close, this is just a view of from one of the boats in the moorings of the club at night, which is still a beautiful sight, and it's much more beautiful looking from the club out over the lights of Key Biscayne and the moorings and just the islands. And with that, pretty much that concludes what I had to say. If anybody wants to send me a question or something, there's my email and my cell number. So you take it, Bob. Can you?
That was really wonderful. That was, you know, that was simply delightful. You found a lot of old photos, and you knew what goes with them, and really a
so
nice
much
background.
There's so much to cover that it was, you know, I mean, there's all kinds of heroes have been there. I tried to cover the ones I knew the most, like Frank Kurdike and Jack Engel, because they were just dynamite. Of course, many others, though, many others. But that was
Really
how the club
interesting.
began. It's still doing it. Our biggest program right now is children's sailing, so, and adult sailing, but the biggest program is with children's sailing, without a doubt.
Well, it is amazing how it all started off with just really simple idea of getting kids sailing, and it's amazing also how it endured. How did you know, it says a lot that something these days can endure for so long.
Clubs have a hard time these days. All kinds of clubs do, but you know, yacht clubs, country clubs, they have a tough time these days for whatever reason, and so it is amazing. They have right now they have more members than they've ever had.
It's amazing. And so the club is in good shape. No urgent
about 1,100
need to...
members. About 1,100.
Wow, that's amazing.
Is that what you said? Wow.
Hey, Bob, could I make a comment here, if I may?
Please, John.
Yeah, Renny, first of all, a great talk. Really wonderful. You know, I think as a club historian, you've been great. People, I don't know if people know, but Renny maintains that wheel, that Commodore's wheel. He comes in with a screwdriver and drill and puts up the new names, and if they get behind, he makes sure that it's all up to date. He's also, I'm glad he showed a few of his plaques, the recent ones. He's a plaque and award maker. I don't know, Renny, how many of these things you've made for different people over the years. I know you've made a few for me, which is, you know, amazing, always artistically done. But I don't know if people know that Renny is really a true Miami native, born, I believe, at the Biltmore Hotel.
Yep.
Which I think is a very interesting fact about Renny. But anyway, Renny, thanks a lot, man. It was a great talk.
Thank you.
Yeah, people do love the stories of Old Coconut Grove. And as I said early in the presentation, your previous presentation about Dinner Key was just wonderful. And it's kind of amazing that you're able to find some of these old photos and stuff and put them together in such a way that's just nothing overly fancy, just a really nice presentation that takes us back through time and gives appreciation.
I wanted to mention, I mentioned Betty Beadle because she was a heck of a good racer and a lightning racer, but she also was one that put together lots of materials and had them in pretty well organized as much as possible. And then for years, the club didn't have a historian or anything. So, and Alan Pruitt asked me to do that, and I've been doing it ever since. But if it hadn't been for her, I wouldn't have had much to work with. But I took all the years, 70 years of stacked up. I had piles 3 feet high in my living room, more than one pile, and of the stuff, and put them into binders by year and so forth. And I wouldn't have had any of that had it not been for her and others, but mainly her from the early years, because she was there in the late 40s, early 50s, and 60s and so forth, and a darn good racer, as I said. But Betty Beadle was her name. Her husband was Commodore in about 1960, and it's like I said, just thank you, Betty. She's long gone, but thank you, Betty.
That's wonderful.
Rob,
I see Dolly McIntyre has her hand up. Dolly.
I remember a few years ago,
the city of Miami decided that the Coconut Grove Sailing Club should go. Whatever happened with that? I know Dade Heritage Trust is currently having the same problem. They're trying to take our clubhouse away from us that we've been in for 40 years. And I wondered, has that situation been carefully taken care of?
Well, I don't want to be the official spokesman on this. I haven't kept up with the very latest, but the clubhouse is on what was going to be was the northeast side of Peacock Park. And for years, it was sort of a public service for years, they were only paying $1 a year or so for that property. Now I'm going way back. Now, then the city caught up to, more current times with their charges. Start costing about, I forgot now, but 20,000 back then, and then next thing you know was 100,000, whatever. The idea of it being, though, that the city always thinks that they could put something else there. Now that was when they were building a new clubhouse, that was an issue whether they'd get a lease or not. So they got a lease, then it ran out, and we ran for years without a lease, and then finally got 3 5-year leases. But also with that, if they pushed us out of there, they have to give us something of comparable to what we have, because we can't move the clubhouse. It would be destroyed and so forth. But there's always that battle. The city of Miami would like to do something else with that property, and it still goes on today.
And there's always somebody new at the city that doesn't know the history, right? So you're always dealing with that.
Build a high rise.
Yeah, wouldn't that block everything for everybody? Put a big high rise there, huh?
Yeah, there's been different proposals over the years, even moving it onto that island that's in front of it. And another one not too long ago was moving Shake a Leg and the Sailing Club into where Regatta Park is now, where the convention center used to be. And Shake a Leg's a powerful outfit. They said, we're not doing it, and they're not. They got the backup. So they kind of put that on hold, and I have no idea if there's plans today to possibly move the Sailing Club, but at one time they're going to move them maybe over to Marine Stadium. And but that's gotten moldy. If it's still there, it's not current. So
Well, I have a really important question for you. How many people can fit at the bar, and what do they charge for drinks over there?
Well, presently at the bar, they hardly have anybody sitting there because of COVID. You can sit in the bar at a table, but they don't have any stools, I don't think, at the bar. But a drink there's a little bit less than what you pay in Coconut Grove, but not it's no steal. In other words, a Appleton rum and coke's about $6 or something like that. And
well, I bet some good stories have gone down at that bar over the years, huh? Would you say?
If those walls could talk, but they can't. So thank goodness.
That's wonderful. That's really wonderful. Well, hopefully with COVID, a lot of people are getting, their vaccine now, and maybe we'll see by the fall season, maybe it looks kind of normal over there again. Wouldn't that be nice?
It would be, because because of the city ordinance and just common sense. For quite a while, nobody was allowed to go out on their boats from the sailing club and so forth, and not even allowed on the premises, et cetera, et cetera. And it wasn't quite that harsh, but it was very close to that. In other words, you were allowed on the premises, but you had to keep your distance naturally and wear a mask naturally. But it definitely put a curb on sailing activities out of the club. You just couldn't do it. Some of the other clubs, they could because they were on private land, but regardless, it's slowed down everybody. They just didn't want to take the chance. So
yeah. Any more questions for Renny?
Very good.
Bill Monroe wants.
Yeah, Bill Monroe, what have you got? Unmute yourself, Bill. Take off your mute. You're almost there.
There we go. I hit it.
Yep.
How's that? That it?
Yeah, you're on.
Okay, good. Thank you, Renny. I thought it was a good show. I saw a lot of photographs I've never seen. I never was a member of the sailing club, but I was there from like when it first started. Was born and grew up at Biscayne Bay, just up the shore. But really enjoyed it. Saw a lot of good photographs. I had the Hootman for a few years. I bought her on the courthouse steps about 1965 to satisfy, I think, First National Bank loan on her.
Right.
But
La-
show, enjoyed it.
Bill, the last I heard of the Hootman was later. I heard it got abandoned somewhere on an island. Do you know about that?
I sold her to a bunch of kids and they wanted to know if they could go to the Bahamas. And I said, she's pretty old and tired. If you pick your weather, you could probably do it. Then I got some report about she'd went to Jamaica and picked up a load of ganja, put it in a van and took it up north to Massachusetts, where some of them came from. And they left some kid on the boat out in the Anchorage. Well, finally she got moved to Spencer's Yard in Palm Beach, and that's where she died. Nobody claimed her anymore. And they salvaged her ballast, and that was about it.
Well, maybe her spirit wanted for Jamaica.
Yeah.
or Bahamas, you know. What a crazy time though, huh?
True, true.
Okay, other questions? Renny is now open and available to answer your intriguing questions about the Coconut Grove Sailing Club. No, not all at once now. Wait, hold on. Well, let me say thanks to Renny for a wonderful presentation. As we know, we can always depend on you for something really sincere from the heart and from your own brain. And you've got a good memory and you know what's going on. And thank you so much for sharing with us some of what you know of Coconut Grove. And I'll just say
Thank you.
hooray for all of us. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Absolutely
I really
wonderful.
appreciate it. I was hoping Don Smith could join us. Can you tell me, did he join in or no?
I didn't see him.
He might be
didn't see
out
him, but-
sailing. He said if he wasn't
you know
out
what we'll
sailing,
do
he
is-
might, or not sailing, but out on his boat. He has a
Well,
boat there at Coral Reef.
Everybody here obviously has, you know, not out sailing today and on the boat. And it was a beautiful day. So there's that, you know, so, but what we'll do is I'll send you and I'll send everybody a link to the program that we recorded today so people can see it online later. Obviously, it'll be there for a long time, probably long after we're gone. And, you know, if YouTube doesn't go out of business and people can tune in and see your presentation, Renny. So thanks again for that. Shall I mention a few upcoming programs here very quickly?
Yeah.
Let's see. We have April 11th, Don Worth, who a lot of people know as for his Miami Memories website and all his historic photos. Don has been very much involved in the Miami Marine Stadium restoration, the theoretical restoration, and I guess we're not there yet, but he'll be giving us a talk about the history of and what's going on with Marine Stadium. And then Becky will lead us in the A Flight into Egypt stained glass restoration project. We've been waiting about a year to hear that one, and so you know we're all geared up for that. And I hope you're all set for that. That'll be May 2nd. Thank you, Becky, for arranging that with us and the ladies of Deering. And then we're going to take a look at a little part of the Redland that was going to be a wonderful city. It's called Aladdin City, and it was forgotten. It's still there, and people still live on the Alibaba Road, and it's really it's a funny story. And it was the Aladdin Home Company who pledged to build your home in one day, and it was pretty amazing how they did it. And if you remember back in the day when you could buy a home from Sears, and all the parts would come. And you get about 11 guys together and just, you know, keep going till you built it. Well, that was the shtick with Aladdin Homes, and they had a wonderful, beautiful plan, and you know, it's a grand plan for a perfect community, and it just didn't work out. So we'll talk about the forgotten history of Aladdin City, and then of course on September, after we take a break for summer, we have Colleen is going to give us her story on Coral Gables Merrick House, and what could be more fun than that. So we'll look forward to that. And of course, Colleen has always got the Merrick House in back of her on her background screen. And so that's always a reminder. And so there you have it. And with that, I'll say hello and goodbye to everybody. Mary Jeaton, do you have a comment?
Yes, I just wanted to say that this was my first meeting of the pioneers and, you know, people interested in Miami history. And I so enjoyed today because my father-in-law, James Eaton, was one of the, I can think one of the earlier Commodores. And, you know, the house had so many of these kinds of pictures that were just shown. And I don't think we don't have them anymore. They're gone. But I just enjoyed the presentation so much, and it brought him back to me, which is lovely.
Well, maybe you should visit the club and look at some of those pictures and take a few pictures of the pictures and then hang them on your wall. That might work, right?
I do know one of the funny stories was that apparently my mother-in-law, Marie Eaton, at some point, probably in the 70s, said to her husband, Jim, it's either me or the yacht club, you know. You know, they live down in Pinecrest, and they just, you know, she wasn't up for the drive up there all the time, but he just loved it. And, you know, there was the sailing in the day and the bar at night. So that was, but he did eventually do the right thing, and he retired from the club, I believe.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Mary. I appreciate that. And anybody else before we go?
Yes, Bob here.
Yeah, Bob.
A few years ago, I was asked to go to Don Smith's home. He was donating a cotton sail to the Barnacle. And so I drove over, I knocked on the door and invited me in. And to my surprise, I've learned, and I'd like to pass this on because I think he doesn't proclaim this, but he is such a wonderful artist. I saw hundreds and hundreds of watercolors of all sizes, you know, 12 by 12, 3 by 4 feet, 3 by 3, just hundreds. And they're just spectacular. I think I have great taste in art, actually. And I was just amazed. I'm so sorry that it's not out there for the public to see. And a sculptor too. You know, he was a dentist by trade, profession, and he showed me some sculptures he did with the fillings, tooth fillings, whatever material that is. But it was spectacular, you know. And I just would like to proclaim his talents there. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for sharing a little bit of that perspective. Maybe one of these days we could get maybe a little presentation of some of his art.
Right.
It sounds like it'd be well worth it. What do you think, Renny?
I'll work on that. I'll work on that because I have some, but certainly not. But I've got about 4 or 5 on a. But anyway, yeah, I'll talk to Don and see what we can do with that.
That'd be wonderful because I imagine he was painting what he knew and what he saw and what he was living, and that's a living history, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
He did some of the early moorings at the sailing club. I have 1 or 2 of those.
Wonderful.
And because he was just a kid then. Remember, he was 17. He's 92 now, and he doesn't. You never know it. The man's quite a guy.
Wow. Well, I'm sorry we couldn't get him. We'll get him on again another time. It'd be
Absolutely.
wonderful. What a resource.
When this is, you know, on the Pioneer web, you know, Dade and Pioneer website, I'll send him the link to you know, to look at it. And
Great.
I've got
And he can
several
hear
people
us.
that asked me to do that. So
He can hear us talking about it.
Maybe somebody could go to his house and help him out, you know, with the presentation. And,
I will
That's a good
talk to
idea,
him
Bob.
about that.
right. Thank you.
Well, Rennie's an expert on Zoom now.
Oh no!
You know, he made it.
Remember, I lost you for a while.
Well, you made it through the trenches and you came back. That was great. I think, you know.
Somehow it went to another Zoom that when you kept saying, look for the red and green and all, none of that was showing up. So when I backed it and went back into the meeting, that's when I got back on board again.
I think we all struggle with how to make this stuff work without looking like idiots. So, you know, you won your badge. Okay. You got your Zoom badge, buddy.
I thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for participating, and I hope you enjoyed.
All right, everybody.
Thank you, Renny.
Very good.
We'll
Thank you.
see you later online.
Thank you.